Hey, so we're gonna flip over to reactive shooting, right? In my mind, reactive shooting, you know, on the competitive side and the application side for like gun professionals, this is the engagement pace, right? We're tying a sight picture to a trigger press, and just like what we did with the pistol, now the only conversation is, are we seeing acceptable, and can we clearly define what acceptable looks like at that yard line, right? I think now we talk about reactive shooting, we have to now pay attention to how fast we can get onto the target to see acceptable, right? So what are some of the big common mistakes we see if we present from a low ready?
Way too high.
Way too high, but why is that?
You're overshooting it.
Right, say it in a different way. I understand we're overshooting it. What's causing it?
You're not bringing the gun straight up.
Where you want looking at the dot.
Right, so there's a lot of times, it's not necessarily looking at the dot, right? Because I don't see the dot, right? But if I'm starting down here, I'm connected to the target, and when I bring the gun up, I equate that a lot of force is gonna make the result precise, right? And this is what I get. Presents high and then drops back down. What ends up happening when we get the high shots on the presentation is that you are actually reacting to acceptable in terms of color confirmation, but the gun is not stopped moving. So think of like, in my mind, performance comes from precision, right? I have to get the gun to stop exactly at what I'm looking at, so that way I'm ready to shoot sooner, where I don't have to shoot faster, right? If it's coming up, I'm gonna catch a high one and a low one, right? So we think about how I want to present. I'll have my laser on, just shoot my day optic, right? The gun comes up and stops on right at what I'm looking at, right? Can you see that with the laser? It tracks up onto the target and stops right on the intended point of aim. Now we talk about times, right? Indexing from a presentation, whether it's a low ready or hunt, what are some goal times that we can work off of? For time to first shot. 7/10 is what I like, right? I think 7/10, we can carry that back a long, long ways, right? If I'm at 15, to present in 7/10 of a second, I don't need to move the gun very, very aggressively. All right, 7/3, 7/8, 7/2, all right, 6/7, right? So how much force does it look like I'm putting into the gun? So every iteration that we shoot from here on out, right, we're paying attention to that reaction time, right? Start from different positions. Obviously, that's a low ready. I think for me, most of the time I'm gonna do pretty much everything moving in and out of positions from more of a hunt position. Where for me, the gun is gonna be level, so my initial presentation is the gun just comes up to my eye target line, and I get a ton of performance out of that. 5/8. Right? See it, less movement, my head's still up, I'm still looking over the target, but the dot to me is stopping exactly over what I want to hit, right? Which is that A zone. Still the same thing we did with color confirmation. I'm shooting color for almost everything. Until we get beyond 50 yards, do I need to see a dot that looks like a dot? Maybe if I put a small piece of steel out there, 30, 40, now I need to see a stop stable dot that looks like a dot. Everything else can be done in terms of color. Make sense? So what we'll shoot is we're gonna shoot a series of rounds, right? We'll start at 15. We're gonna shoot it on both targets, right? So I'll shoot 2 rounds on each target, pure reactive shooting. Right? Again, I've got the index from transition, but I'm seeing dot press, or color press, color press, color press, color press. Same thing we did with bunny stacks, eyes ahead of the gun, right? And the pace at 15. Let's go back to 30. So now at farther distances, what do we think happens to the split?
They're gonna get slower
All right, why?
because you're trying to confirm too much.
Over confirmation can be, I think they get slower because what it takes to get an alpha at 30 is different than at 15, right? I can't shoot, if I'm shooting the same pace, one of two things is true. I'm either shooting 15 too slow or 30 too fast, right? We're always trying to put more into it, right? But if we talk about this initial reactive progression, what's the acceptable accuracy?
Just in the A.
Yeah, it's got to be a very high, above 90% alphas, right? And that's programming yourself to now react to it. I can keep putting more and more into it in terms of performance, but I've got to start understanding the idea that I don't just need to sling two at it predictively. I need to see something, right? And what I'm looking at 30 is color, right? Color confirmation back at 30. Me both up in the A zone, dot tracking is good, right? As fast as I can get my eyes over to that other target, I'm ready to engage. Does that make sense?
So watching Matt, you should key in on visually what's happening. So if you notice, if you're watching closely, the rifle will come up and there's a pause, a brief pause, and then he starts shooting. What's happening in the pause? Yes, that is where the confirmation is happening. He's registered. Yep, register color. Then he'll look over. He won't shove the gun at the other target. He'll look over at it. The gun will track over, but it'll be like boom, 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 boom. What I'm saying is, why is there not a pause on the second target? Yeah, he's looking at that target, and it's like he's aware of the sight as it's tracking over. It gets his like, yep, it's in there, and then he continues shooting. All right? So it's like, again, this is like, it's tied to a sight picture, but you're going to use all the information you're getting.
I will tell you part of it, maybe some bad habits that don't translate necessarily to the competitive side with the rifle. But for me, like if I know I'm going to shoot I'm going to shoot aggressive confirmation 2, and I'm going to put 3, 4, 5 rounds on the target. The cleaner I can make the start point, the better the end point will be. Does that make sense? I know I can hold the gun steady and shoot very, very aggressively. So that little brief pause, that's me confirming, yep, color, boom, 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 boom. If I shoot moving color back at 30 or even 15, what do you think that result looks like?
It'll be strung up.
Yeah, it will move, right? Because I'm shooting into it, boom, it tracks. It's not going to track back up to my point of aim. It goes somewhere else. So I have to do what I would call more active aiming while I'm shooting, which becomes very, very difficult, right? So for me, if I'm shooting multiples, triples, quads, 5 rounds, I want that start point to be, you know, right at confirmation 2, maybe a tiny bit over it, like 2.2. I'm still not waiting to let the dot sit there and recognize, yeah, perfect dot, now start shooting. It's still color, but I'm relying on my ability to react to color immediately is really a mechanics thing. Can I stop the gun precisely on what I'm looking at? Does that make sense? So everything we'll shoot will be on 2 targets. We'll just listen from behind the line. It'll be 2 rounds, 3 rounds. It's just get guys comfortable with confirmation. We'll take it back to 40, and then we'll put all the performance side into it, and we'll do the standing part of CQB warm-up at 40.
All right, we're still going to check the result.
Yep.
We got to talk about some things. All right, folks. Nice result here. Strong recommendation. When you're doing this, always shoot the same order. Do not alternate left to right or right to left. Now, why might I say that? Yeah, so it's going to give you a good diagnostic tool. So these hits, I would say, like pretty nice. Probably Matt saw the track up there. You know, and then the ones that are out here are just a little out. The second target is the one you really want to pay attention to. So the first one, typically they'll string up. That's probably caused what? Shooting in motion as you mount the gun. Okay. What if I'm clustering over here on the second target so I come into it and they're clustering here? What do you reckon's going on? Yeah, so it's like it's really easy just to push the gun into brown and clack the trigger instead of like, nope, I'm looking for the middle and you wait for the color to come in the middle. What if I'm hitting over here? Yeah, so it's like, again, like IOQ on just look at what you want. As soon as you start to, it's a subtle thing, but as soon as you push the gun to get it over here, you tend to push it too far. So use that second target as a tool to gauge what you're doing. Okay, am I doing the right things with my eyes and with the input into the gun?
What I see on the foot, right, I'm obviously looking to where I think the perf day is, and I recognize color, I hit color. When my eyes jump over, right, this is about where I'll start picking the dot up, right, and that's obviously a little misstep, me judging, yep, that's acceptable. I get like the Charlie Alpha. This is probably second shot, where now it's color, it's coming back down because my dot tracks like that, and I'm just, the conversation really goes down into, are you assessing what's acceptable? Right. At speed, the close Charlies, like I'm always aiming for the alpha when I'm shooting a drill, but on the performance side, when I see, yep, this is acceptable, and to me, I'm looking 3 to 4 inches within the point of aim, shooting flashes of color. It's coming back in, yep, that's acceptable, relying on my ability to hold the gun steady, shoot it aggressively, right, and then it's just color smash, color smash, color smash. Any questions on this? All right, let's start at 15.